Hey guys, you're tuning in to the Rappler Gaming League's online invitational for League of Legends, featuring teams from 8 major universities in the Philippines. Once again, for this week, I'm Tessa Wu, and I'm gonna be your play-by-play caster again.
And I'm Taknum. I'll be giving you the in-depth analysis of the game. So, last match, guys, was a game between UP Oblation Esports and UST Tiger Esports. It was a great game, guys.
It reached Game 3.
It reached Game 3. So, if you guys want to check it out, head over to the Rappler site for highlights and the full video of the game.
Speaking of social media, guys, if you haven't yet liked the Rappler Gaming League's Facebook page, please do so. Also follow Rappler on its Twitter account, and please subscribe to the Rappler.com Twitch channel.
Yeah, and we have actually shoutouts again this week. So our first shoutout comes from CSB Blaze It from Joe Colina and Carl Chu 5 ever. And Jed and Titch 14 ever. So much love, guys. Surpassing forever.
Yeah, very cryptic messages in my opinion. And we also have shoutouts coming in from their rivals for this particular match, the DLSU Viridis Arcos. And these shoutouts are to Erichrome Fansign Lord and CYG Flaw Swag Lord. Not Swag Lord, guys. Swag with a Q. Very, very different from anything else I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so now we're actually going to ask you guys, if you have any questions for us, please ask us from the Twitter page of Rappler, #Rappler.com, guys.
Yeah, spell out the Rappler.com as DOTCOM, and we're gonna answer your questions if you have any questions about the game, like which champion to pick against who, and we'll try to respond to you as fast as possible.
We are not claiming to be experts on the current meta of League of Legends, but if we can help in any way, give our own opinions. And to be perfectly honest, we want to hear what you guys think. If you have comments and suggestions, and even your questions would be a really good indicator as to whether or not we're very knowledgeable about the meta right now. So we just really want to improve and make all these streams and castings awesome for you guys. So please send in your questions through Twitter, and if not, feel free to post a question on the chat box by the Twitch channel right now.
Yeah, and so next week will be actually the first semi-final games.
Yeah.
Between the Azure Eagles and
MIT Kryptonite.
MIT Kryptonite, or is it APC Rams? Actually, but the week after that will be the UP Oblation Esports.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
APC Rams.
It's actually the APC Rams. The Azure Eagles, the first semi-final games against APC Rams, and the week after that will be UP Oblation Esports against whoever wins the games today.
Yeah.
So culminating to the grand finals, which teams will win 20,000 pesos in cash.
Yeah, and the first runner-up is gonna win 10,000 pesos. So once again, guys, the match today is going to be between CSB Blaze It and DLSU Viridis Arcos. And now let's log into the matches.
Let's look at their player profiles. And
beforehand, yeah.
we can see, so it's Jed Gaktuan on top lane, Carl Chu on mid, James Kalupang in jungle, Yoshino Okubo on ADC, and John Swertebrooks on support.
Very interesting last names from those two. I've honestly never seen anything like that. Yeah. Okay. And now we're gonna go to the player profiles of their enemy team, which is the DLSU Viridis Arcos. We have Rainier Gomez as their top lane, Sherwin Cheng as their mid laner, Kurt Cristobal as their jungler, Aaron Grippal as their ADC, and Dominic Alcantara as their support. Now, this is definitely, I think, considerably one of the most exciting matches for the Rappler Gaming League's online invitational, considering that these two teams were the finalists in last year's LCL match. So a lot of people have been hyping up this match, feeling like it's kind of a rematch between the two of them. And now we're gonna go to the pick and bans, guys.
Yeah, so both sides going into the pick and ban phase. You can see in Annie ban right now, it's one of really strong engaged supports with the Flash Tibbers doing a lot of damage and securing huge amounts of engaged stun where everyone can just pile on their skills one by one after that.
And the next ban coming in from DLSU Viridis Arcos is the Anivia. And the second ban coming in for CSB Blazed is the LeBlanc. I honestly don't see a lot of banned Anivias in solo queue.
Also, this LeBlanc ban is interesting because prior to this patch, she was already seen as kind of falling off.
Weak,
because her W was nerfed in speed, but then they gave her back that extra speed this patch. So they're seeing a lot more strength in her now.
Yeah, and I think there's one thing to take into consideration. Look at Diamond Nivea. I think that is a great indication that he is probably a pro at the Nivea and they do not want him to get their hands on it. And now this second ban coming in from DLSU Viridis Arcos is the Thresh. Not a surprise, one of the best supports you can have throughout the entire game. And the last ban coming in from CSB Blazed is the Lulu.
Yeah, so CSB's bans right now are basically showing they want to run some sort of heavy engage, because what Lulu really does against heavy engage comps is that it like negates a lot of damage to the carries, right?
Exactly.
And having that Lulu against that kind of comp is a bit harder to deal with. So I guess they want to secure those kinds of strategies for their team.
And the last ban for DLSU Viridis Arcos is the Azir. This is interesting because a lot of people were expecting bans against certain jungling champions, particularly Skarner.
Skarner's actually being hovered on right now.
Wow! And they do lock in the Skarner on DLSU Viridis Arcos. And the first pick for CSB Blazed was the Elise. Not a surprise for the Elise because Elise is considered to be one of the top tier junglers right now. Also Skarner, considering this patch, do you want to talk more about it, Takno?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that Skarner wasn't banned, since at level 18, he gets 150% extra attack speed if he's near those shrines. That's like
three Phantom?
That's like 3 free Phantom Dancers. He's insanely strong in this patch, and if Skirtle can pull it off, they'll definitely have a really strong early and even late game.
And now, along with the Skarner, it was the Nautilus. So those were the first 2 picks for DLSU. And now the next 2 picks for CSB are being hovered over. The Olaf particularly not locked in yet. And the champion from their second player has not been chosen yet. Now, do you feel like the Elise was a good call? Considering that I know you and I were expecting a Skarner ban somewhere. There was no Skarner ban. And yet, CSB had the opportunity to have the first pick Skarner, and yet they didn't do so. Do you feel like it was a disadvantage for them to not do it? How do you feel like?
Well, I think in terms of raw strength, I mean, Skarner is gonna be stronger than Elise in this patch. But I think it's not always just the champion, right? Players have different kinds of synergies with the champion. That's why in solo queue, for example, you don't just automatically pick the top tier mid laners, because if you don't know how to play it either, it's not gonna do well. So I'm not really saying that they can't play Skarner more of.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not yet used to the sort of strategies that revolve around having Skarner in their comp.
Oh! And DLSU Viridis Arcos locks in the Mordekaiser. Yet another champion that is just insanely strong this patch. I can't believe they got away with those 2 picks, and another pick is going to be hovered over for DLSU Viridis Arcos, and it might possibly be the Fizz, and it is the Fizz. Now we're going into the last 2 picks for CSB Blazed.
I'm actually very interested in this Mord pick because right now he can be played almost anywhere. Top lane, jungle. He can even be played as the ADR, quote unquote.
The ADR.
Yeah, because he gets full XP, and if you couple him with a maybe AD mid such as Ezreal or Varus, you still have enough sieging power. So he's been played around a lot in different lanes, testing out what kind of abilities he can be pushing out.
And now the last 2 picks for CSB Blazed is being hovered over right now. As of now, it is the Kog'Maw and the Ahri. So we're gonna see if they're going to lock that in. And they have the Olaf. I actually want to talk about the Olaf pick because Olaf is definitely going to be the top lane, for example. And Olaf has actually been one of, not necessarily the most contested pick among European and the North American LCS, but he's been, I guess, a surprise pick in a way. And if you play him right, he really is almost unstoppable, being able to reach the back line. It's been played by Dyrus, for example, if I remember correctly, in his matches recently in the LCS.
So if this is the Varus, he might actually go mid lane, support Nautilus and Top Fizz.
Wow.
And Mord bot.
And Mordecai's, unless, well, actually,
yeah,
I
that's
think
actually
so,
how I see the team comp if the Varus is locked in.
because you see also the summoner spells.
Yeah. I think Blaze It, CSB Blaze It, is running a little bit smart because they don't want to match a lot of tanks or other juggernauts against a team that already has Mordekaiser and Skarner, since they're gonna have such a strong damage in the front line. What they really want to do is small skirmishes and poke them out, because if they manage to stick to DLSU, they're just gonna get wrecked with the amount of damage Skarner and Mordekaiser has.
I think that's why they went with the Kog'Maw pick. But then, in a way, if you can think about it, DLSU Viridis Arcus kind of answered to that by having the Varus, who is a really good poke champion. So even though that would most likely be their plan of action in order to take down DLSU Viridis Arcus, they technically matched a poking ability with the Varus. So in a way, they weren't necessarily countered, but they don't necessarily have a poking advantage over DLSU because they have a really strong poking champion as well.
Yeah, and I was actually expecting this team comp to show up relatively now, along with the new patches, because Mordekaiser is really strong with that full XP gain in bot lane, and the only weakness that Mordekaiser has in bot lane is that he doesn't have a lot of sustain. They will be running double relic shields, which gives them a bit more sustain. But if they were against, let's say, a poke type support such as Karma, it would have been really hard for them to sustain in that lane.
Exactly, but then I think considering that Morgana is their support, I mean, obviously not as much poke, but with the Tormented Soil, for example, that's also be a considerable amount of damage that they're going to have to sustain throughout the laning phase. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was the jungler picks, because obviously, jungler role. I remember asking you earlier whether or not you felt like CSB Blazed made a mistake not going for the Skarner, for example, considering it wasn't banned and they had first pick. And I think one of the reasons why they went for the Elise, despite the fact that Skarner is considered to be one of the most buffed champions in this patch right now, is her early game pressure. Because even though Skarner can be super OP late game, we talked about how he practically has 3 Phantom Dancers at his disposal as a passive in some sort. If you compared the early game, for example, Elise is more efficient in terms of early ganking. So if you had to compare the gameplay that both of these teams are going to employ, I really do think that CSB Blazed would want a lot of early jungling pressure coming from the Elise. More often than not, in solo queue games, Skarners almost always just gank when they're level 6 when they have their ultimate.
Yeah, and actually, I think that the biggest weakness to the team comp of DLSU is hard engage. So if they really want to commit to those engages, they would have to build or sacrifice a lot of their items for maybe a Righteous Glory, a Talisman of Ascension, in order to be able to stick. So even though Skarner has amazing damage output, one of his weaknesses is if, for example, your ADR is Kalista, or you can run around, he's not gonna be able to land that damage. Same for Mordekaiser. His third hit is almost instant kill. But if you can't hit them, it won't have any damage. So they will have some form of power hole. They will have to build around hard engage instead of having normal item builds. Otherwise, they won't be able to land any of their damage.
But here's another thing to take into consideration. They have a Nautilus. And if the Nautilus was able to use his ultimate, for example, that might be able to give them ample time in order for them to deal as much damage as they can, like all the potential damage they have. So I think that was honestly a good pick. I mean, if you compared all of the champions, for example, from DLSU, Viridis Arcus, I really feel like the Nautilus rounds off the team comp with this ultimate. And even the Fizz, for example, because the Fizz with his Playful Trickster has the ability to be able to get into the backlines of CSB Blazed, and if he's able to land the Chum the Waters, for example. So there's basically 2 ultimates at their disposal that can help them. So I do agree with you, but I think their picks are just phenomenal in my opinion. I'm trying to think of something completely wrong with it, but I feel like all those disadvantages, for example, are kind of ironed out, basically.
Yeah, and we're actually gonna load into the Rift right now. Oh, in Champion Select. Yeah, and anyway, in CSB's team comp,
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I feel like they did make a good decision in that they're not trying to sustain the damage as the same. But here are the player profiles of
once again
CSB Blaze It. So once again, top lane is Pizza with Coke. Mid lane is Diamond Divya. Jungle is Sobrang Colette. ADC is Rayon. And Vaj on support.
Viridis Arcus. In a short while, we have Thesis as the top lane, Fiery Warrior as their mid lane, Skirtle as their jungler, Akose Panalo as ADC, and Tristram as their support. And I'm really excited for this game, like even on a personal level, because we have to remember that these two, once again, were the finalists for the LCL game last year. And I feel like it's going to get personal between these two. I mean, I would be extremely disappointed if it didn't reach Game 3, because I think me, along with almost all the viewers right now, are expecting it to reach Game 3.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a bloodbath if it's anything like the finals of LCL.
That was insane!
Year.
I will not forget those games. It was just phenomenal. It's one of those games that you probably wouldn't forget. Like the Unicorns of Love game versus Fnatic.
Yeah, and I think that DLSU's been able to adapt constantly to the meta, right?
I think so. I think if you did compare the two team comps between CSB Blaze It and DLSU Viridis Arcus, it is very evident that the team composition of DLSU Viridis Arcus, like what you said, is very corresponding to the meta right now. The fact that they technically don't have a standard AD carry. It is a Mordekaiser, for example. So we see that they are experimental and they're very daring and they're not afraid to try something new.
They actually did go for the double relic shield.
Yup,
so
that's what you expected.
That's what gives Mordekaiser his sustain in lane, because he has to go in the last hit. And if Nautilus gets his hook on Kog'Maw, he will be able to get that kill, because it gives Mordekaiser enough time to land all of his damage.
And we see that the teams are landing some of their wards just to get an idea of where everybody is, but I'm not expecting any jungle invasion from any team as early as now.
I think what CSB wants to do here is be able to push a lot of pressure on the bot lane, because Mordekaiser has to go up.
Oh, but Thesis is taking a lot of damage from Pizza with Cope and Diamond Nivea. He does blow his flash, but the Ignite takes him down, and it is first blood going in favor of CSB Blaze It.
That was a little bit of a misplay. He already saw Olaf there, so he didn't have to extend so far.
I don't think he expected the Ahri, to be honest.
Giving up first blood to the Ahri should give her an ample advantage against this Varus. If she does reach level 6 first, she's gonna have the kill pressure on Varus.
And now we see that the Fizz is now moving his way top lane. We see that Pizza with Coke is helping. They're doing the jungling tactic, basically. So they're going to level 2 together, which is a tactic that's very commonly seen in LCS. And we see Skarner is actually fighting alone, finishing the blue buff right now. And we're going to see standard lanes. And the Dark Binding does land on the Mordekaiser, and he is getting a little bit chunked out from the Kog'Maw because of his range.
It's gonna be a little bit hard to farm. This is the weakness of Mordekaiser bot. Usually he's paired up with Alistar because he's the only support with a heal and a lot of engage potential.
His triumphant roar, yeah. Exactly. And we see that, like what you said, because of the double relic, it does give them a lot of sustain in lane compared to otherwise. And we see there's another fight happening at top lane, and Thesis might possibly die again. He does Playful Trickster out of there, and there's a little bit of turret damage coming in from the Olaf of CSB. They're chunking in a few potions just to get a little bit of health back from that fight a while ago.
That was a pretty even trade, despite Olaf looking like he won it initially, because he took that extra tower damage at early levels, which of course indeed does a lot of damage.
And we see that the bot lane, Mordekaiser is actually pushing out. The Dark Binding does land again, but I don't think any of the pairs from DLSU and CSB are going to commit. They're trying to do a little bit more aggression. And we do have a gank coming in from the Elise. The Dredge line does hit and he misses, but the Dark Lining does ban. The heal was popped, the exhaust is used, and we're gonna see if they're going to commit. The flash was used and he is forced to repel out of there.
That was huge amounts of damage coming from Mordekaiser's third Q, and Nautilus is just tanky enough to survive that. But I feel like they're putting on too many risks right now because Mordekaiser is really prone to ganks.
And there's going to be another gank. He's able to sidestep away from the cocoon, but the Dark Binding does land and he's forced to use his flash. Oh my god! A lot of emphasis coming in at the bot lane. A lot of attention from the jungler of CSB Blazed.
Yeah, they're getting a little bit overzealous in this bot lane. They just need to farm up because if Mordekaiser does get too far, he doesn't have any escape mechanisms to get out of that gank.
A lot of potions being chugged by the dual bot lane of DLSU. And now we see the Ari or Diamond Nivea from CSB recalling. And now the Skarner is just going to clear a few of his camps, possibly trying another gank at top. We're gonna see if that's going to happen. Because if I'm not mistaken, there was a gank earlier at top lane, but it didn't amount to anything.
Elise actually stuck in bot lane and managed to almost kill Nautilus. So 3 consecutive ganks on the bot lane, really trying to shut down this Mordekaiser and Nautilus.
We see a few pings coming in from DLSU Viridis Arcus, and it is quite possible that both the Varus and the Skarner of their team is going to make their way at top lane. We see Thesis is at less than half health and he's trying as best as he can to bait the Olaf of CSB, and it might possibly work. We see that he's trying to get in. Thesis might possibly die, and he does, but Pizza with Coke is trying his best to do as much damage as he can. Will he be able to survive? I don't think so. And now Fury Warrior does secure the kill with a 1-for-1.
That was a bit of a misplay coming from Fizz. He didn't really have to go in.
Exactly, he could have just backed away at the tower. He did his job at baiting him out, but I guess the temptation was there. He was Gollum at that point, and now here's a replay for you guys.
At this point, Fizz should have just completely backed off. He was just taking too much damage from Olaf, and even though Olaf does die and they get 2 more assists than Fizz, that's not such a huge trade. They could have gotten 1 for none.
Because if you consider the roaming time as well from the mid laner, and you want to be able to get or make his trip worth it, basically. I think that's the best way I can phrase it. And the fact that you gave a kill. Oh, and they might actually repeat what happened at top lane. The Dark Binding and the Charm doesn't land because the Varus was forced to flash. Probably well worth it.
That was good roaming timings coming from Morgana. She knew that Mordekaiser wasn't in the lane, so that gave her an ample time to use that time to actually roam.
And there's going to be another fight at top lane. Thesis already did use his Playful Trickster. Will he be able to survive? He does, just by the skin of his teeth. And Pizza with Coke is just going to be content with the minions that he's going to farm in his lane.
This Olaf is starting to become a monster.
He's insane. He's been harassing the heck out of that Fizz.
He's now ahead 10 CS, and this wave is gonna get pushed in, possibly getting another 6 CS into that turret to get denied.
We see a few pings coming in from CSB Blazed. Were we going to expect another gank at bot lane? I don't think so. They're just making sure that the dragon is warded. Scuttle is in favor right now of CSB Blazed.
I actually want to see what kind of build Mordekaiser would run, because there are 2 different types of builds wherein you go Trinity Force and AD, or will you want to prioritize the Rylike Crystal Scepter for the AoE? So there are 2 ways to play around this build. It's either high single target damage or AoE sustained damage.
I think that's definitely something they're going to have to take into consideration, because especially Fizz, for example, he's more single target with the exception of his ultimate, probably. And I don't know, it depends on how they're planning to go with it. But we're going to see. I don't want to make any predictions and be wrong about that. We see Skarner's actually making his way to bot lane. And I don't know if he'll be able to gank properly at this point. He's trying to go in through the Tribush.
It is
warded though, and they're trying to escape. The Dark Binding does land. Will they be able to catch Rayon? Oh, he does manage to flash, but will they be able to tower dive? He might possibly die, but if I'm not mistaken, the heal was blown from the Mordekaiser, giving him the amount of HP he needed to survive that failed gun.
That was a beautiful flash. The hook did connect.
Oh, and the Varus does use his ultimate and forcing Vaj to flash out to his turret, and his arrow does hit him, and now they're at extremely low health, and I think the bot lane from CSB Blazed will be forced to back out.
Ari is not punishing Varus enough for these roams. She should be able to deny him a lot of farm for this, and if she doesn't, she's just giving Varus a lot more map advantage.
Exactly, considering that Varus has been roaming way more than the Ari, his CS is even higher than hers at this point. I completely agree with you in that sense. And to be honest, if I had to give my opinion as to the odd man out in the CSB rather, Blazed, it would have been the Ari. And now there might possibly another fight at top lane. Thesis took a little bit of damage from that axe throw, but he playful tricks her out of there.
So a lot of heavy skirmishing coming from both teams, a lot of roaming coming from the supports, and all overall they're just trying to get the feel of where they can be at certain times and do as much damage.
Oh, and the Elise does flash and land the cocoon. That charm actually does work, and they're able to tower dive him. And I think the repel of Elise will be enough to keep her alive, and it does. That was beautiful.
Yeah, Varus was able to pop his cleanse at the exact moment of the stun, but despite that, he was still caught with the charm. Follow-up. So beautiful synergy between Elise and Ari, getting a kill on Varus.
So that right now the scoreboard is 3-1, 3 in favor of CSB Blazed. It is 10 minutes on the clock, and we're going to see if any of these teams are going to prioritize Dragon. It's been up for a while now. No one has even bothered to make attempts for it. Skarner right now is on the enemy side of the jungle, and I think they might possibly go for a tower dive considering how low the life of the Kog'Maw is. And I think it might actually happen. We're gonna see he's gonna use his ultimate. The dredge line does land, and I think the Soul Shackles will be able to catch a few people. Will Tristan possibly die? And he does. There's our teleport coming in from the two top laners. Chomp the Waters does land. Thesis does manage to secure the kill for his Mordekaiser, but then he takes a little bit too much damage from the tower, and he does die. It is a triple kill coming in from the Mordekaiser, so that is a 3-for-2 trade in favor of DLSU Viridis Arcus.
This Mordekaiser is getting a little bit too out of control. And there's gonna be another dive coming here since there's only 2 people there. They're channeling the teleports. They do get 1 member, but I think like it's gonna be too late. The Ghost is hammering down. Fizz is already in bot lane. Olaf is smashing away on the Fizz, and he does manage to get the double kill on them.
That was an insane clash, and I feel like one of the things that went against CSB, for example, is a lot of the turret damage wasn't equally distributed. Because I'm sure most of you guys know, but then turret damage actually increases upon successive hits. And I think that was probably what went against them completely. The fact that they weren't taking turns delivering damage to the point where a lot of the health from the damage dealers were getting chunked out individually in intervals, and it wasn't being shared. So I feel like if they were able to kind of play around with that, they might have had a better chance of making it a more even fight.
I think that they shouldn't have gone for that second tower dive. They already got the kills that they needed. They could have backed off and not risked too much.
But I really feel like it was the teleporting from the top laners that prompted them to stay. I think that's what. And now we see that they're going to probably have another clash at bot lane. The exhaust does land on the Mordekaiser. He's trying to succeed. He's trying to escape. The cocoon does land, and I think they might possibly be able to kill him and get a shutdown. Will it happen? And it does. The Kog'Maw does get the kill, and it's a double kill. Not for one player, but essentially for CSB Blazed. Ari securing the second kill, and that might possibly be the cue for CSB Blazed to get Dragon at this point.
Here's the replay. They do manage to get the exhaust on the Mordekaiser. They're trying to zone him out, and they manage to get the stun, and they just all land all their damage after that on the Mordekaiser. And they managed to even land the Dark Binding of the Nautilus. There was absolutely no way they could have escaped from that.
There was actually a kill that happened at top lane that you guys weren't able to see with the replay from that clash at bot lane, and it was between the Olaf and the Fizz. So Pizza with Coke was actually able to kill Thesis under tower at top lane, and he was able to survive with minimum health. It was insane, guys. So credits to Pizza with Coke for that, and we're going to see what these teams are going to do right now. The scoreboard is 8-4 in favor of CSB Blazed. It is already 13 minutes and 27 seconds on the clock, and there is a small gold lead or considerable gold lead on CSB side, almost 2k.
I think they saw a lot of CSB's members rotate to top lane, so they managed to make a good call and take this dragon. Wow.
Uncontested, basically.
They saw them back at that point before that clash, and knowing that they backed, they just knew that that was the timing for them to go in for that dragon.
And we actually, if you pay attention to the wards, for example, I feel like there is a lot of concentration of wards from DLSU on the bot side, as you can see. And if you notice, a lot of attention has been placed on the bot lane. So we see that they really want to get this Mordekaiser going, and that's where a lot of their resources are going. We see that there might possibly be another tower dive at top lane, but no, Olaf is trying to get the tower, but he is able to... He might possibly kill Thesis under tower. Oh, Thesis is able to land the Ignite, and with a few successive hits from the turret, he was able to get this revenge from the last clash that they had against earlier.
He took way too much damage in that tower. He's already pushing his strength too much. He can just deny Fizz that CS. There was no need to be that aggressive.
And we see that the charm of the Ahri does land, but she takes in a lot of damage from the Varus pokes. And now we see that these 3 laners, and joined by the Skarner, there's going to be 4 members of DLSU applying pressure off the mid lane. Once again, the Dark Binding does land. Kudos to Vaj, the Morgana of CSB Blazed, for landing almost all his Dark Bindings.
The CSB actually had the window to take the dragon before DLSU did. When they managed to get that successful gank on Mordekaiser and Nautilus, that could have been the cue for them to take the dragon, but the backing timings weren't as accurate because they were able to give it off DLSU.
So in a few seconds, Fizz is going to have his teleport up. The Olaf already has his, so we're gonna see that if there's going to be a nearby clash right now, because right now, both the top laners have teleport. We see that Fizz is hanging around top lane, so he might possibly wait to make a teleport, but they decide not to clash. And I think the Olaf from CSB Blazed is going to secure the first tower kill of the game, which is the first tier top turret of DLSU, Viridis Arcus.
Considering that Dragon is already down, the strategy of DLSU should be to set up a pushing wave in bot lane and rotate somewhere top lane where they can siege with a pushing wave in bot.
And now I think... Oh, and the ultimate of the Varus does land. Will they be able to do a few more damage? I don't think so. He does do a lot with the Kog'Maw and the Morgana at less than half health. That is a lot of damage coming in from the Varus. And now the Ahri is at less than half health. It's insane.
Ahri almost landed the charm there, but really fancy sidestepping from the Varus allows him to get a lot more counter poke on the Ahri, and this will be the siege for the tower. I'm not sure if they want to contest this tower anymore. They're all at low health, and if they don't do anything, this tower will fall.
The Olaf makes his way to mid lane, and he's trying his best to intimidate his enemies. The DLSU Viridis Arcus trying to throw and hack them a few here and there, but I don't think he'll be able to, on his own, with the Morgana at his side, defend the tower. And I think the first tower of CSB is going to fall. Oh, the Dredge Line does land, but the Spell Shield is able to protect them from any further harassments from the enemy members of DLSU Viridis Arcus.
Kog'Maw was rotating in bot side, trying to get that wave in during that push. Since his members backed, he knew that he couldn't push it in, but it seems like the pushing power isn't strong enough for him to be able to create that opportunity.
There is a lack of vision right now coming in from the blue side as compared to the red side, for example. And we see that Fizz is trying his best to push the top lane, but the Olaf is there to catch the wave and farm as much as he can. He has a considerable CS lead over the Fizz. He is at 126 right now, and the Fizz is just at 86.
Considering Fizz is 142, that's a huge disadvantage for Fizz. I don't think he can take on this Olaf right now, and they might need to have a different form of rotation, because if Fizz is the one that always responds to this Olaf, he's just gonna get wrecked.
I think so, but right now there aren't any rotation coming in at top lane, so he might be left to fend for himself. We see the Skarner probably going to make his way to top lane. I'm not sure. A few pings coming in from CSB Blazed, and I think they might want to siege the mid turret of DLSU.
Skarner prioritizing the AGs right now, so they're really worried about the magic damage coming from CSB. But I think a Righteous Glory would have been better. Nautilus is trying to build it right now, but if Skarner did build it, Nautilus could have already focused on a Talisman, which gives them double engage power.
And now we see the Dragon is going to be up in less than a minute. Baron at 1 minute and 10 seconds. So we're gonna see if these guys are going to start making their way to Dragon. Because as of now, the first Dragon did fall to DLSU Viridis Arcus. And there is no wards from CSB Blazed anywhere near Dragon right now. In fact, there is not a lot of wards scattered throughout the map. We see probably 3 wards, including Scuttle, for CSB Blazed near Baron. But as of now, not a lot of wards scattered throughout the map, so their information as to the rotations of DLSU is very limited at this point.
DLSU really winning the vision game right now, and a lot of their members are rotating to mid lane. They might potentially want to push the lane in and then go for the Dragon, which spawns in 5 seconds.
I think that's what they're going to do. A few pings coming in from CSB Blazed, because I'm pretty sure they have a good idea that the second Dragon is being attacked. And I don't think there's going to be much congestion. No, it was secured. The Elise tried to take it. She repels, but it's only going to delay the inevitable, and she was killed. It was secured. Trump the Waters does not exactly land because of the spell shield. The Dark Binding does land, and they're trying to poke him out as much as possible. Will they be able to do so? I don't think so. Look at the Dragon. The Dragon is at Mordekaiser's disposal. This is Game of Thrones, and he is Khaleesi.
Despite having a huge advantage, you saw in that clash, DLSU was being kited heavily. So even if they do have a huge advantage, after that primary engage, they don't really have the tools to stick. And that's why I think they should have prioritized that Righteous Glory and Talisman. But this Dragon coming from Mordekaiser might be enough to actually set up the siege in the second tier.
That is insane. And there is a pause coming in from, I'm not sure who team, but you can be guaranteed that the Kog'Maw or Rayon of CSB is going to be in trouble. I feel honestly bad for him. This is almost a sure death. I'm just going to wait for what's going to happen. But that was interesting, calling Mordekaiser Khaleesi. I'm sorry if that was a little bit too dark for the viewers who are watching right now.
I think they will be able to secure this tower since Kog'Maw and Morgana are at a really low HP, and with this Dragon at still around 700 HP, it can still take around 4 tower shots, and they'll still be able to destroy this tower.
Oh, and the Kog'Maw does die, but he does not die alone. He is able to kill Varus. The Olaf, though, does kill the Nautilus of DLSU, and there's going to be further clashes, and the Ahri is able to secure a kill against the Mordekaiser, and now she is on a rampage at 4-0-1. To be perfectly honest, I'm surprised that CSB was able to secure those 3 kills. It was a 3-for-1 trade in favor of CSB rather, and I'm so surprised they were able to get those kills, because we talked about how the Morgana and the Kog'Maw were at severely low health.
They were able to rotate around, and the weaknesses of DLSU does show, because if Skarner or if Nautilus misses his hook, they won't have any way for Skarner and Mord
to reach the back line.
I mean, who's gonna be scared of Mordekaiser casually walking up to you when you can just walk the opposite way as well? So.
But CSB was able to win that fight because the Olaf also used his teleport. So he was able to give a lot of assistance despite the fact that majority of his teammates were at low health. And right now, the teleport advantage is in favor though of DLSU Viridis Arcus.
So Mordekaiser is opting to go for a split build. He's getting the Rylai next for the sticking power, and he did get the Triforce for that single target damage. It's a smart build because it gives you somewhat of a mashup between the two builds. You don't have to sacrifice too much AoE or single target. It gives you a good mix of both. But I think if you're going for the AD build, it's better if you get the Stark's Cage maybe as a third item.
Okay, now the scoreboard is 11-7 in favor of CSB Blazeit. It is at 22 minutes right now. And there is a small gold lead coming in from CSB, a little bit less than 1k. So we see that DLSU, from the 2k deficit they were experiencing earlier, they're trying to lessen that a little bit by little bit.
It is 22 minutes. Skarner is going to the bot lane. He does manage to land the smite on him, but CSB Blazeit is rotating downwards. So is DLSU. This is gonna be a bloodbath. They are blind. They don't know what's going on with the jungle side, but then they're chasing it, and I'm not sure if they'll be able to make an engage.
I don't think so. The Varus is also making his way to give possible assistance, but right now they're trying. I think they're going to try to forget the first tier bottom turret that they have. We have to remember that the Fizz does have his ultimate, and the ultimate of the Nautilus does land on the Ahri, but the spell shield prevents any of the stun. She does use Spirit Rush, for example, and we see a few things coming in from the Fizz. He does teleport, and I think he will flank. Trump the Waters does land on the Olaf, but then he's able to survive from that. But I think not for long. It is a shutdown on the Ahri, and we see that all the members are collapsing, and we see all the members of CSB Blazeit are just basically dying, and that was a 5-for-1 trade in favor of DLSU Viridis Arcos. I can't count apparently.
So despite not having that hard engage, they were still able to get it with the Fizz flank.
This is exactly what I was talking about. The fact that the Olaf used his teleport earlier, they should have expected that the Fizz would be able to teleport and have the flank, and he was able to use Trump the Waters and create a lot of disturbance. So you see that CSB just completely not knowing what to do. They were overwhelmed with the situation, and they did not have a single target. Because if you noticed, the surviving members of DLSU Viridis Arcus, a lot of them were at low health, but none of them died except for one of their members. If I'm not mistaken, it was the Nautilus. But 3 other members were at low health, and they weren't killed.
Nautilus actually finishing the Righteous Glory right now at 24 minutes. So this should give them a lot more room for hard engage, covering a lot of the weaknesses of this team comp. But if Fizz manages to get those flanks every time, it doesn't even matter that they have those kinds of weaknesses, because Chum the Waters does create a huge slowing zone and a knock-up zone for their team.
And we see now that at 25 minutes and 8 seconds, the scoreboard is now even 12-12. But despite the fact that the scores are even, we see that DLSU is experiencing a gold lead over their rival CSB Blazeit. We see it is almost 4k gold lead, which is a lot right now at this point of the game. We see that although CSB was trying to not repeat the mistakes they had with having no vision over Dragon, the fact that they backed out gave a lot of time for DLSU to remove all the wards practically of CSB, and now they want the 3rd Dragon.
Dragon is up in 6 seconds. Olaf is in top lane, but he does have the teleport. They should know that they're doing this right now because Varus is seen in bot lane, so it gives them an idea of where the rotation is, but I guess they can't really stop it anyway.
This is Game of Thrones Season 3, guys. Another Dragon coming in for the team. We see the Righteous Glory was popped, forcing Ahri to use Spirit Rush, and she does manage to get over the wall. So even though the ultimate of the Nautilus didn't land, she was out of harm's way.
That was quite an awkward Righteous Glory because only Nautilus benefited from the speed. Fizz actually went on the Playful Trickster, so he avoided the speed boost from that Righteous Glory.
And now they're trying to push mid lane as much as they can, trying to get a few pokes from their Varus. And the Dragon is at their side. Who said that this game didn't have any buys? They're trying to chunk out as much damage as they can from the Dragon that is serving as a really great unit for them to push the 2nd tier mid turret of CSB. But will they be able to take it? Oh no! But it takes a little bit too much tower damage. And now the kill was secured by the Ahri of CSB Blazeit.
Skarner was tanking that turret
a little bit too much.
A little bit too much when it should have been the dragon, but they got the pick. Nautilus tries to go in to anticipate the damage, manages to get the ghost off, and they seem to be able to get this turret. So one manages to get the Olaf in exchange for the Skarner a while ago.
I feel like a lot of little mistakes are working against these teams severely at this point. And now they're trying to get another tower in their favor, DLSU to be specific, and they're able to get the second tier top turret of CSB. They have a lot of turrets at their disposal. As you can see, CSB Blazed has only taken down 2 turrets, while DLSU Viridis Arcus is able to take down 6 turrets. That is the 3 times the amount of turrets. So now their goal lead is even more substantial at least 5k.
Morgana should be getting a talisman next to counteract the Righteous Glory of the Nautilus. It's good that she also got the Righteous Glory for a heavy engage, but I think Peel is a lot more important right now.
At this point.
Because Mordekaiser and Skarners and even Fizz is gonna be a huge threat if they manage to get to the carry. So I'm not sure if hard engage is the trick against this hard engage comp. I think they should have gone for a different strategy. Maybe a kiting oriented or peel oriented build.
A lot of pings coming in from both teams at mid lane. So we're gonna see what rotations they're going to do. The Fizz from DLSU actually getting the red for himself.
They are gonna try to get the Scuttle Crab right now.
An endangered species.
If they do get this, they might be able to bait out this Baron or just get to it
and
altogether.
I think they are starting it. There is a lack of vision coming in from CSB. Even though they have a pretty good idea that Baron's being started, they're practically going to be walking in blind with the exception of that Scryer Orb, and it's not going to matter. And the Varus was able to land his ultimate, forcing the Elise to repel out of there, and there is a pause mid-clash.
I think one of their members maybe got DC or something.
I am not sure which team paused it. Skirtle actually paused it. So the pause did come in from DLSU Viridis Arcus.
I guess they want to recuperate what they've been having in this game. They do manage to get the Baron, and this clash does land a lot of ultimates on Elise, and the hard engage will be able to have a lot of this follow-up. I'm not sure if CSB Blazed will be able to kite away from this.
I think CSB has been making an incredible mistake with the lack of wards that they've been placing on objectives. I mean, from the Dragons alone, you can see that they have not been properly warding the objectives.
The game is starting in 3
That's
seconds.
going to be another conversation for later. And the Elise obviously would not have survived at all. We see the Righteous Glory was fought by the Nautilus. Will they be able to catch anyone? The Kog'Maw is forced to flash, and because the ultimate does land, the Dredge Line does land too, and he might possibly die. And the kill was secured by the Mordekaiser, and the Varus takes a kill for his own. And now, the only member standing for CSB Blazed is the Ahri, Diamond Nivea.
This will be the siege, or possibly they might just want to save their losses, but I think they will opt for the siege. And Kog'Maw there flashes into Olaf and Ahri while the ultimate was on him, so the knockup hit 3 people.
Exactly, that was not ideal. And right now, they were able to take the 3rd tier top turret, also more commonly known as the inhibitor turret. The Ahri was able though to secure a kill against the Fizz of DLSU. She does land the charm on the Skarner, but I don't think any other follow-up damage is going to happen. And DLSU takes the consolation prize for their fallen member. They get an inhibitor.
Death timers are low, so they were going up. They didn't want to push or stay too long, because if they do manage to get killed right now, it would just lose a lot of the advantage that they have already gained.
So let's look at the scoreboard, ladies and gentlemen. It is 14-17 in favor of DLSU Viridis Arcus, and despite the fact that the kills aren't too different from one another, they are experiencing almost a 10k gold lead at 30 minutes and 30 seconds, and that's due to the fact that they also have a lot more towers, 5 towers up over CSB Blazed. And right now, Dragon is going to go live in less than 1 minute and 15 seconds. And CSB does not want to make the same mistake. They want to keep it warded, because if they allow this Dragon to fall into the hands of DLSU, they will be 1 Dragon away from the aspect of the Dragon.
An interesting item pickup is this Zeke's the Harbinger from Nautilus, which in my opinion, doesn't really give a lot to their team. Maybe the 50% hit might work well with Varus, but he's not
used for that.
He's not used for that. And the AP ratio additional on Mordekaiser isn't what the item's really built for. It's built to enhance already existing hypercarry. So it's a questionable pickup, but they are winning. So
instead of taking Dragon, they actually have their eyes set in for the inhibitor mid turret. We see that the Dredgine does land as well as the Charm, and they're able to punish the Nautilus for getting a little bit too close. There is a teleport coming in from the Fizz, and he's able to get in, but he does not able to land his ultimate. He does on the Olaf, who does not get stunned, but actually a lot more damage coming in from the Varus, the backline of DLSU, and it is 2 for 1 in favor of DLSU. We see that the Charm does land once again. Oh, and there's a flash coming in, and he drags the Kog'Maw on the floor, and now it is 3 members down for CSB, and will they be able to defend their Nexus turrets? I don't think so, and this might be game 1 in favor of DLSU. The Nexus is going down, and I don't think the remaining members of CSB BlazEt can respond, and game 1 is over.
Game 1 goes to DLSU. Very interesting game. Huge comebacks from both teams, and huge prioritization of items, and even taking advantage of the existing meta. I don't think CSB wants to give them that Skarner pick next game.
I don't think so. I think they had a lead though. I mean, CSB BlazEt had not necessarily a huge lead, but they had a considerable lead early game, with kills, for example, and kills and gold, essentially. But I think what CSB lacked, they lacked pushing. I don't feel like they pushed their lanes enough. They certainly didn't siege enough towers, and I feel like all the towers that DLSU was able to accumulate slowly but over time was able to make up for any gold deficit that they were experiencing early game, to the point that they were able to itemize really well. The Nautilus was able to build that Righteous Glory considerably early throughout the game, giving him the ability to make those hard engages.
I think that the win from DLSU was largely due to the fact that they were able to secure a lot of
objectives as well.
Yeah,
also.
And they were able to play around their power spikes. They were really weak at the start because of that huge power hole with no engage. But once they got that Righteous Glory, once they got the flanks, it was just snowballing a lot of their late game potential and heavy engage team mechanics. Of course, CSB did play around the team comp well at the start, but they were just giving too much opportunities to DLSU.
I agree with you completely, and I think that's one of the things that you pointed out that I really like, the fact that the play style of DLSU Viridis Arcos was in line with the power spikes and their itemization, basically, when they got certain items. Because at least at the beginning, prior to that Righteous Glory, for example, they weren't as aggressive as compared to when the Nautilus actually finished the Righteous Glory. So I really love that you pointed it out, and I feel like DLSU was really able to make up for those deficits early games. And ward control, for example, I really do want to point that out, because I feel like that was one of the things that worked against CSB, the lack of vision control on those objectives. Because even the Baron, for example, it was practically uncontested. Like, even though they had a good idea, or practically they knew that DLSU was already starting Baron, they were walking in blind.
I think there was a lot of miscommunication also from CSB side, like when the time they saw Varus in bot lane, but they didn't attempt to do anything with that information, knowing that they were already in the Dragon Pit. So I guess it was just warding and a lot of these rotational outplays that DLSU got over CSB BlazEt.
Okay guys, so we're gonna have a 15-minute break. Please stay tuned for game 2 between these teams. Once again, if you have any questions or reactions, please send them on the Twitch chat box and on Twitter page.
Just put the hashtag Rappler.com, DOTCOM, and we'll see you after the break.